It's not an encouraging start to the political year for the Morrison government, with today's Newspoll showing the coalition further behind Labor, 44 to 56 in two-party preferred terms, with Labor well ahead of the coalition on primary votes, the Prime Minister's personal approval tanking, and Anthony Albanese almost level as preferred PM. Although, as you know, I don't place a lot of store in the preferred PM stakes. It's the primary vote that I always look to, and at 34 for the coalition, well, to say it's not good is an understatement. But before anyone starts writing off the government's chances, remember that just prior to the 2004 campaign start, well, the Howard government was behind 44, 56 in the polls. It went on to increase not just its majority, but historically its position in the Senate as well. So I want you to ask yourself this question. Right now, is Labor ahead because it's found itself a charismatic leader and a compelling set of policies? Or is Labor ahead because the government isn't doing enough? The answer is pretty obvious, isn't it? And when it's the government's lack of fight that's the problem, not a better opposition, then there's no reason why things won't turn around by polling day in May. Provided, of course, the government does something about that lack of fight. To everyone who says that the government should be doing more to crystallise the differences between Liberal and Labor, like perhaps committing to nuclear power on land as well as the sea, and actually scrapping the politically correct national curriculum rather than sort of fiddling around the edges, I say hear. To everyone who's put off by the government's constant reiteration of economic stats to tell you how good things are, when people are saying, well, that's not how my family or my small business are travelling, well, I hear you there too. Statistical unemployment might be low, but there's still well over 1 million people out there on unemployment benefits at a time when we've got businesses unable to meet demand because they can't get workers. Economic growth might be high, but how much of that's due to government? And how much is it just hard-working business people getting on with things despite the red tape that's thrown at them? Governments shouldn't expect a political reward from a strongish economy unless it's clearly the government's own doing that's caused it. As John Howard discovered back in 2007, telling Australians, you remember, he said, you've never had it so good, when many households at the time didn't have much spare cash in their pockets. As I've argued from day one of the reasons the polls are bad for the government is the so-called National Cabinet. It tended to reduce the PM down to the level of premiers. It dragged down the national leader. And while Scott Morrison hasn't played politics with the pandemic, boy, those Labor premiers surely have. But as tough as this is for anyone who doesn't want to see the return of Labor to power in Canberra, all of this should start to change as the pandemic fades away, as the campaign heats up, and as people start to focus not just on the things that might well have been done better over the last couple of years, but on who is actually up to the job of keeping the economy strong and the country safe. Two portfolios, I might add, that Anthony Albanese has never had: economics or national security. And these are the coalition's strong suits. That's where they need to get their focus on. Enough of the defence game, PM. Get onto the attack. Elections are, after all, a contest. It's time the coalition got into the ring. Simon Holmes a Court, the climate zealot who's financing a raft of candidates at this election and who does want to change the government, well, he gave the game away today when he advised his Voices candidates, or Greens pretending to be Menzies Liberals and well-heeled electorates, not to say who they would support in a hung parliament. And we've got the Greens out today too with their list of demands to get Labor over the line. The truth is that the only candidate you can trust to back a Liberal government is a Liberal one. Remember, it was the so-called Conservative independents who kept Julia Gillard in office after the 2010 election, and Holmes a Court's poster child, Warringah so-called independent Zali Steggall, she's voted with Labor 64% of the time. I always remind people heading into an election, your vote isn't about who you politically love. It's who you want to run the country. That's not the crossbenchers, it's not minor parties, it's not independents. They're all a distraction. It's either Liberals or it's Labor. The challenge for the Morrison government right now It's to remind people of that fact, to get on the offensive, start to show people who Anthony Albanese really is beyond the makeover. Frankly, to stop making themselves the issue with stupid mistakes and not yet enough fight.